Just wait for a little bit. All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? It is Saturday, February 22nd, 2020. And yeah, I know I had a profound thing last time, but not this time. The Constitution, the Constitution. That thing, you just got to think on it. Ed has sent me an email, and I'm trying to get it into PDF, but it is huge about the 13th Amendment. So as soon as I get it back to him in PDF, he'll probably send it out to hundreds and thousands of people. With that, sorry if the quality of the video is not that good. The audio should still be great. And
I get to go in and have some medical fun tomorrow. I get to go in for heart surgery, so that's what I get to deal with tomorrow. So, but I'm still here, and so that's the whole point. I'm getting this stuff so we don't lose our education and knowledge. I want to get into a couple points. Now, apparently, so-called grandson of the terrorist Obama is running for Congress in California. Not even American. And I hate it when people lie and they say, I'm American, I'm a native, and you can't prove it. You know, I was born here. Just because you're born on this country does not mean you have rights. All right? You have to be 5 or more generations to have rights. That's the 14th Amendment. Read the actual Indian treaties, and that goes back to the Indian treaties and the structure saying that you have privileges, not rights. The Indian treaties are the laws of the land that comply with the Constitution. The Constitution complies with the native treaties. And if people would start really educating themselves and stop playing this game, because just to let you know, there's 3 congressmen now getting ready to be indicted for being born in a foreign country running for Congress. So you can't run for office, and I've been preaching this for years, and on this show for at least a year and a half. You can't run for office if you're a foreigner. You cannot. You have no rights as a foreigner. I don't give a damn what you fantasy thinks. You have to be natural-born citizen, and that applies with the 14th Amendment. That is 5 or more generations. You know, if you're the 5th generation, that's borderline. Okay, we'll consider you lawful. But if you're 4 or less, you know, we don't want nothing to do with you. You come in our country and you rape our children, you lie. People say, oh, yeah, they don't rape. They do, too. I mean, come on, look at Obama. It comes from Kenya. Oh, he said it was anybody with any I don't have a problem with the Queen running my country. Well, you guys got to realize, if you're letting a foreigner run your country, you have no rights. You have no rights to your life. You have no rights to your children. It's that simple. And I've been enjoying, you know, I'm not really enjoying really in the hospital, but I've been enjoying a lot of conversation I've been having with elected and public employees that definitely prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the birth certificate stock bond is real. Because you have to be born in this country, on this soil of 48 states. You cannot be born in, you know, say I could come to the United States and all of a sudden I'm an American citizen, because a citizen is a 14th Amendment structure off the Vatican, the British administrative rules, the British court, not an American court. And once you comprehend that you're not an American, hey, then we could talk. But all these people claim, I'm an American. You're not an American. See, that's the point. You don't have rights in this country. And that's the law. But everybody wants to say, I have rights. I have rights. Well, I'm sorry to say, you don't have rights. And people jump on me for that. It's like, go look at your flag from England and go look at your flag in Hawaii. Learn the reality instead of the fantasy that you're living and bluntly lying to your children. I always find it interesting how people lie to their children, and then, you know, Christmas, Halloween. You know, Christmas technically is a pagan holiday. Halloween is a pagan holiday. But see, there are seasons of the holiday, but it's not paganism. See, it's knowing what the separation of our country is compared to what we've been led to believe. And so if you know that England, the bar, the British accreditation to the King and Queen of England, the bar is still the accreditation to the King and Queen of England. It's never changed. It will never change. And that goes back to August 21st, 1878, the foundation of the American Bar Association. And see, that's the thing. I have a conflict when they call it American compared to, you know, well, they're calling it the American Bar Association, but there's 2 twists of American. And so we're going to get into that because I got to still lawful and legal research. See, there is a difference in their concept. Legal is the British government, lawful is the Constitution and native treaties of this country. So, and then the other point is on the 13th Amendment, I will be posting up the whole 13th Amendment on this page. It's going to take probably 200 posts on the page because when I did the 13th Amendment, it is 108 pages. So that way you get to know it's 108 pages. So that way you know the truth of what it is. And so the 13th Amendment was the last amendment that was passed and ratified. The 13th Amendment was the last one that was passed and ratified. And so that's the only one that gives you your rights and your laws and stuff. And so without that, you have no rights. You have no laws. The 14th Amendment was never passed and ratified. That was the structure of the Civil War, and that was the claim of the British government on this soil, because the British government says, we're going to, even though that you won the Civil War per se, we're going to still send people, so it was determined a ceasefire. You know, and so that's the one thing that you got to realize. And even when the Bible says, you know, you take over your neighbor's cow without permission, I mean, I don't believe in the Bible, but the Bible has some points in it. But you got to remember, what the Bible comes from England. It's a foreign structure, or Spain, depends on which way you look at the structure where it came from. But the one thing is the Constitution of the 13th Amendment, they took it out of a lot of stuff in history because the lawyers and attorneys and democracy didn't want you to know the truth, because everybody says we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. Democracy means you could rape, rob, and pillage, and there's no charges for you. I mean, come on. How many people have been assaulted, or even children that were raped, and the district attorney says, oh, there's nothing we can do about it? See, it's like, come on, people. Let's start being realistic in this real life structure. So, and the other point is that I've been dealing with people, and I'll put up the national board structure, too, tonight with a video that explains it, because under corporation of the 14th Amendment, I'll put that up with the actual administrative rules and laws. So that way you know the difference of the statute. And then everybody keeps going. I've been having fun with people keep going on this. A person does not exist. It's hearsay evidence. It's somebody that's not real. A person is a joke. And when people say, I'm a person, well, that means they're an inanimate object. They don't exist. A person does not exist. The law guarantees. The law does not guarantee justice law for a person. So when you go in front of a judge and you say, I'm a person, and that's claiming your name without proving that you're a lawful bloodline native or legally here under contract, you have no rights. So a person says, it's very simple, says, I'm an inanimate object, and a person can be sued. A person has to pay property taxes. A person has to pay state and federal income tax. The term legal person, is that's where the companies and a corporation is a person. So a corporation, and this goes back to 1866, the color law of 1866. So, and the only ones, and this is fact, and I'll be posting this up too, the only one who could write an affidavit is a lawful man or woman. A legal man or woman cannot write an affidavit. That means a public employee. That also, too, includes senator, state representative. That includes a police officer. Cannot write charges. A district attorney cannot write charges. And so then the other point, people say, I'm a natural person. Natural person doesn't exist. Either you're native or you're not. And so a natural person is claiming that you're a physical person, not human. So that's what these words mean. So the whole point is reading these words, understanding these words, comprehending these words, and what they mean. I've been talking to some people, I've been in the hospital for stuff and bring it out, and you could bring this up, the FAIR Act. You always want to look at the FAIR Act, the Administrative Rules. The Foreign Agent Registration Act of 1938. That's 22 U.S.C. 611 through 621. And so that means if you work for the government, city, county, state, Remember, the government is still the British corporation. That's Title 8 of the Code of Code of Washington, D.C. And see, when you pay your state and federal income tax, it goes to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. sends out what they're going to put back to the mayor, city council for their partying funds to pay. When you pay state and federal income tax, and we have the evidence, we're able to prove it, not a dime goes to this country. It goes to Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. divides it between the Queen and the Vatican. And this is a fact. This is how this stuff really works. So when people sit there and they go, they're trying to claim a title of nobility. I don't want a title of nobility. That means I have to be responsible under the Queen's administrative rules. Okay, and that's the one thing you got to realize, that you're speaking under the Queen's administrative rules, and then you say you have rights. You have no rights once you admit that you're a person. That's how people get arrested and are thrown in jail. We got to work on our jail system too. They're kidnapping and held for ransom, because a lot of people are kidnapped and held for ransom, and they're doing that deliberately. So when they do this, and this is the other point, a legal person can write checks. And if you notice on the check, if you take a magnifying glass on the check, you see where it says legal authorization, Legal authorization, so that means you're claiming that you're a fake identity, you're a person that doesn't exist, but you're claiming a legal authorization, signing a check or administrative rules or something to that effect. And so this is how they come back and bite you in the butt. It's like the birth certificate bond. People don't comprehend the birth certificate. When you get a birth certificate for your child, you have 45 days by each state administrative rules. Each state, that's 48 states. Alaska and Hawaii are not part of the United States. Alaska, Hawaii, Alaska is still no man's land, technically. Nobody claims it, even Russia, even though we bought it corporation, because we bought it by a corporation. The Queen of England was a corporation that bought it, and that was the Title 28USC3002. And so it's very important you look up these numbers. It's very important that you do the research and realize what a felony is, what an administrative rule is, what a code, a citation. See, all these things really do matter. They really do matter. So when you're claiming you're a legal person, when a cop comes up and talks to you and they say your name, or are you a person, are you a citizen? Well, I never meant to be a citizen, because a citizen means that you're a British subject and you are responsible for, if they want to charge you with anything, and I mean literally anything, they can charge you with anything, so you're liable. And that's what they do. They charge you with false crimes. And remember, all crimes are commercial. And I put that up on our YouTube more than once, but it is. All crimes are commercial. And once people start realizing all crimes are commercial, and that means your insurance companies, because your insurance company can write off a crime. So if your crime is paid for, that's where you need to fight the courts on it too. Because if something comes up missing and then, you try to go after it, or you find out the perpetrator that did personal property damage, you're liable. And see, that's the point. The kids today are not taught responsibility. They're taught this fantasy stuff of democracy, says we can get away with this, that, and the other thing. See, in a democracy, there's no rights. And everybody keeps going, well, I have rights, and we got to save our democracy. We're a republic, not Republican, republic form of government. And so when it goes to Republican, okay, now you're going into politics. You're not dealing in real life. And this is the problem that we have with the kids that are not educated. And they're not being properly educated. And that's the one thing I'll be doing this week, because I plan on filing for county commissioner. I'm waiting for the papers to be dealing with my heart issue again. So that's why I get to go in the morning for heart surgery. So that is something that, this is the one thing, a person is a naturalized born thing. I'm a naturalized native born. Okay, you don't. So when you use that, that's where people get in trouble. So, and that's the other point of the structure of the tax codes. See, and then, like right now in Oregon, they want to raise all of our taxes right now. They're trying to put in this motor tax, fuel tax. And people don't realize, oh, we need new highways. Well, every time you purchase anything, batteries, tires, anything, 25% of everything you buy dealing with automotive, and that includes bicycle structure. Bicycles go into the coffers. Well, they're not going to tell you that, because if they do that, they lose their partying money. Because there's so much money in our budgets that are lost and gone and destroyed. And see, that's the one thing you got to really comprehend, what they're really doing to you in this country. And when you get elected, literally, and you get taught this, because if the children ain't raped, there's no money coming in, there's no jails being done, and then the jails sit there and really rip off the people, because every time you make a phone call, and this has been going on for the last 30 years, you make a phone call, then they want you to charge it, then they tell you, oh, make a collect call. So when you called from jail, they add another $3 onto the collect call fee. And see, all this stuff matters, and people just say, oh, it doesn't matter, we just go on, we just have to pay it. Well, if you educate yourself and start filing your right to file out of the corporation and claim yourself as a lawful man or woman, so long as that you are born on this soil. Now, if you're an immigrant, you have to educate your children until the 5th generation, so that way, and if you're smart enough, you don't sell your land, or your land at that point, because when it becomes soil, then you give it to your child, and so that way they can't charge state and federal income tax and property tax. And I'm getting ready to fight the property taxes here in Oregon. Because that's the one thing that Oregon State Constitution clearly states, you don't have to pay property taxes. But just like most of you and most of I and all of us, we've been raised by our parents and just told what to do. Or you always hear, Mommy told you to do it. Mommy says this. Mommy says that. Do what Mommy tells you to do. So what, you're a kid, so you just do what Mommy tells you to do. So it is very frustrating. We grew up in these manners. So with the 13th Amendment, it really comes down to the structure. Do you want freedom? Do you know your freedom? And can you be free? Now, Donald Trump has just come out with that. We know that he came out with the structure with the Immigration Act, and everybody's going after him and panicking on that because, we should allow immigrants coming in. And now they got ballot titles going out, and now they got these petitions going on so that immigrants be allowed to vote. And this is what democracy is destroying your country by, because nobody has a right to vote unless they're born on their soil. And then technically, if you go by the 17th Amendment, and if you actually read the 17th Amendment, technically the only ones who are allowed to vote is the House and Senate, and that's on their budget of what they have to produce with income. Taxes are voluntary. The corporation is voluntary. You don't have to participate in it. But this is how they come after us with guns and policing, law enforcement. And remember, police are nonprofit agencies. And I do encourage you to look up the nonprofit agencies and statuses. I really do encourage you to do that. And I'll be posting up the stuff, how you can sue a nonprofit. Because all police departments are nonprofit agencies. So that means all sheriff deputies, all public servants, dispatch, all of them are nonprofits. And the only profit they make is by rape, robbing, and pillaging from you. Because if they could write you a ticket, a citation, or put you in this mess, and this violates the 13th and 14th Amendment. So this is a conflict of all this stuff that we do, and this stuff was put in place so we could argue. So they got us fighting and arguing over these semantics instead of the real truth of what they're doing, raiding people's homes illegally. And that includes hemp. Because by federal law, and we have that on the website, and I'll post most of it. I can't put the other structure on. I'll try to copy and paste it, put it up there. But federal law says hemp is lawful, not legal, so long as you're native. And that's the one thing to realize. When you're native, you have rights, not privileges. So that means you have to come out and be realistic to your children and educate them in that fashion so that way they have knowledge. They're not scared. You don't want them to be scared. You want them to be knowledgeable, to be respectful to them, and you want to be respectful to them. And that's the whole point. We forgot what it's like to be respectful to our neighbors, to our children, because everybody's out for personal greed. It's all about me, 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 me. And that's the saddest part today. We're living in a society of me. What happened to us? It's supposed to be we, the people. It's supposed to be us, not foreigners. And why aren't we allowing these foreigners coming in and dictating in your home how they're running and doing stuff for you? Why are you allowing today? Nancy Pelosi passed administrative rules on Muslims could be in office or Muslims could vote. And they did that. Nancy Pelosi was part of the structure of democracy with Jerry Brown, and that put the seed in the ground so that way they could come after us today like they're doing. And then you're wondering why you have no rights. And that's the point, why you have no rights, because you're not standing up for your rights. And see, once you start standing up for your rights and protecting your children and start standing up for your bloodline, then we have a future. See, all we do is we hear these words, including on Facebook. Facebook's another wonderful thing. We hear conversation and talk, and I get all these people talking and saying this stuff on Facebook, project or that project. And then it comes down to, everybody wants to argue instead of reading the law. This law says, here's what the law says. Let's go by the law. And then they want to argue about the law. Well, how are you supposed to have the protection? Our forefathers wrote this stuff 100 years ago, 200 years ago. They wrote this stuff to protect us because they knew what they were dealing with in their own structure. They knew what they were dealing with their own life at that time of the year. And that includes the 1700s. They knew what they were dealing with. And so it hasn't changed from the 1700s to the 1800s to 1900s to the 20th century. And it's never changed. We're still in the same boat. So, but the bottom line comes down to how are we going to be able to look at the future? I mean, it's like when the other point is that, when you go in, it's like when the doctors and everybody comes up and goes, we want you to sign this. I'm under duress. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm under duress. Look up the term duress. That means you have a problem with elected and public employees, or what some would say authority figures. And that's what it really comes down to, because you have a right to your freedom. It's not a right to argue. If they have a good point, they have a point that brings out the honesty, then that's where it needs to be done. Without that honesty, there's no children in the future of the children. Because I get tired of listening to everybody saying the future of the children's our future. What about our present? We're not protecting or taking care of the present right now. So with the Constitution, when people keep talking about a person is an inanimate object that does not exist. Look the term up. And I've argued with people about this term person. And that's the one thing is that when you start realizing that, the corporation is a state. And it's like, I have the paperwork, and I'll put it up tonight again, that under the United States structure, a person, you're saying you have no rights. So if you want rights, start reading your laws. If you're an immigrant, remember, you have to follow our country's administrative rules. Because our country is the law of the land. Our country is nothing for a foreigner to come in and dictate to us how we're going to live. At that point, we could have a real future coming up in this country. And that is the one point, having a real future. So when you're telling the kids that they don't have a right to do this or to do that, make sure you know what you're talking about. Don't do a bully structure. Do not play bullies on these kids. Because, see, when you start doing the bully structure, and I'm reading the news with the bully structure that's going on right now with these kids, and it's like, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and, we had to deal with the bullies, but we did the bullies a different structure. Sometimes we used to, I don't want to get into some of the ways we dealt with the bullies, but it wasn't what they deal with today. Because we go after them, we dealt with them a lot. We didn't go after them being nice. We handled it, And sometimes it was aggressive the way we handle it, but we had to do it. And then we come with a comprehensive and understanding, and then most of the times you would go over and shake the bully's hand, and everybody became peaceful, and you're protecting one another. Now, and that's the one thing, so you know that Trump is coming out, just came out with a public statement how we should get rid of judges. And so I know a lot of people are like, what? Get rid of judges? Well, we don't need judges. See, there's supposed to be a constitutional structure. That way, when you are injured, you're supposed to go, the injured party and the perpetrator are supposed to go in front of a grand jury of 6 of each, the perpetrator's people and the injured party's people. And one thing is that if you do end up going to court and you get a grand jury, make sure that you verify that you have no elected and public officials. Because, and if you do find out you do have them, that's called a conflict of interest. You want to put a conflict of interest statement in because you know for a fact they're making a living off of it. That's the one thing you got to realize. They're making a living off it. You know, and then the other point that I noticed with people are coming out with asbestos, not asbestos, but Roundup, and with Monsanto's, and I've been dealing with that because I use Roundup myself and stuff. We all have. So, and the point is, it was supposed to be protecting us, and then we find out it's worse. So, those are the things that come across this point of what, why, and how. You know, so how do we protect ourselves? And the other point is like people with the IRS, you know, because people are attacking the IRS building nowadays. Well, you're signing a contract to the IRS. So how can you blame the IRS when you're signing a contract? You know, that's the one thing you got to realize. You're signing a contract to pay those taxes to the Queen of England. You know, that's the one thing that, you know, February 18th, 2010, remember, you know, over a decade ago. A plane flew into the IRS building, you know, killed himself, and that's the point. Why did he do that? How come he didn't realize he signed a contract? See, and everybody keeps going, stir up the stuff on this, keep going after the IRS, and it's like, no, educate yourself, because if you're an immigrant, you are supposed to pay taxes. Your taxes are supposed to cover we the people. That's the sole structure of income tax. You know, and that is the one thing is really crazy that people don't get. And then the IRS, here's the other point. Congress is killing several cannabis reform bills this month. If you're native, you have lawful rights. It's called native. We have a prescription for that. It's called the Indian Treaties. See, the thing is that we don't have proper education. There's no real education in our system, because if there was real education, we wouldn't be arguing and fighting in the street like we do. And the one thing I want to give a pat on the back for Greyhound, so people comprehend. Greyhound has got a deal on Greyhound now that, you know, it always had it that, you know, if you're a runaway, you get, if you're under 18, I think it's 21, but 18, you could always get a free bus ticket wherever you're going home. So Greyhound's been doing that for years. So that's one thing. Don't forget Greyhound pats you on the back. And that's the other thing that I don't like it because, and I do comprehend where Greyhound is stopping border patrols coming on the buses nowadays without a warrant. And I do have to agree, but it is frustrating with that because Greyhound travels across the border and goes to Mexico, and so it is hard to determine who's invading, who's a terrorist coming into our country. Don't have a warrant, then how are we supposed to do a republic form of government? And stepping out of how these things work, and if you notice, and if you start paying attention to the media, you notice that more and more elected and public officials are being arrested. And so, and you know, the people are going off on YouTube about one judge should be impeached. And the thing is how come the people are always bitching and not writing the criminal complaints on these men and women? You know, that's the one thing. I know that some people are not educated. You know, people keep telling me, hey, don't call them stupid. But I have to do that. Maybe they might get riled up and do something. Call them stupid and they might get up, but they don't get up either way. You know, that's like, I can't remember her name, the attorney that's been out there. for some time. I'll think of her name. She's always out there advocating for our rights, but she's a lawyer. You can't advocate for rights when you're a lawyer. That's how you get away with stuff, because you're making a deal with the judge, and so you're deciding who, what, why, and how. And then the other point is a good point here. I don't know if anybody knows this that just came out. The United States Congress just eliminated removing tags on foreign wheat coming from China. We don't know what they're doing to the food. So be prepared to, if you hear these deaths or injuries from the food coming in, pay attention. It's your responsibility. You can't blame the FDA, because the FDA don't do anything. See, that's one thing that, what happened to personal responsibility? What happened to liability? And then the other thing I will be putting up on the YouTube channel tonight when we're done, with bank loans, there's no such thing as a bank loan. The banks on this structure, there's no bank loan. I'll put the lie, and go read Title 12 with the banks. They can't own property. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people the last, couple of weeks on what's been going on, in their neighborhoods, and it's like, how come people are allowing this to go on in their structure? And then everybody wants to be defending the LGBT community. I don't give a shit if you want to pretend that you're something, but doesn't guarantee you a right to do it. The Constitution protects you as a man or a woman to fake yourself if you want to be a fictitious whatever. She doesn't give you a damn bit of rights in that. And once you comprehend that you could be whatever you want, hey, freedom. All right? But see, you can't sit there and go out and accuse somebody that they said something or your feelings were offended because somebody didn't like because you're gay or lesbian and they told you off or whatever. Too bad. So sorry. So sad. Be an adult. Walk away. Don't participate. See, once we start participating in all these circumstances of what's going on with this craziness that we're living, and then we're participating, and we wonder why nothing's going on, why all these problems are happening. The problems are happening because people are participating, and they would like to see more and more craziness happening to this structure. That's like these parents that their two children, it's all over national news, been missing for several months. They picked up the mother in Hawaii. So what's going on here? Where's the truth? Where's the facts? See, we want them to put the facts in. And see, that's the one thing that, Margaret Thatcher said a wonderful thing. The problem with socialism, and that's what Bernie Sanders is running on, and a couple of other Democrats' platform, is that you're running on other people's money, their assets, their homes. So once it runs out, you have nothing to run on. And see, that's what democracy is all about. Rape, rob, and steal. I can steal from you and take as much as I want from you. And that's what they're getting away with right now today. So you go back to the 13th Amendment, it says that, we the people, we have rights. We're not to be in the structure of the corporation. Because in the 13th Amendment in the Civil War we fought the British government again. That was funded and corrected by the South. And then we've been in 5 civil wars in this country, which stuns me is how come the news media, and especially we got the worst education system in the country, don't educate the children on anything. They educate the children on bringing police and fire departments to the school districts. All right. Oh, go meet the cop. Go shop with a cop. I hate that shop with a cop program. So if you want to buy something and you don't get clarification from your mommy, daddy, or a cop now, that's the one thing. And then some of these people are going along with the program, which to me is horrifying, literally horrifying. Because you're turning your children over to these foreigners that you're giving a right to dictate to how you are doing this stuff. And that's the one thing, like I said, you got to remember, you got to realize Obama was born in what country? Kenya. Everybody knows that. Obama turned out with his structure born in Kenya. Okay, and then he claims he's from Hawaii. Well, how can you say you're in Hawaii because Hawaii is owned by the Queen of England? See, that's what confuses me, not confuse me, it just stuns me that people go along with this stuff and tolerates this stuff and tells their children these lies, and then they wonder why their children are mentally screwed up today. Right there, the proof is in the pudding why they're screwed up. You're not educating the children. I mean, when you talk to kids, and I've done that since I walked around the hospital, talked to different young people, and they don't even have a clue of the truth of what's really going on in this country. They really don't have a clue. And so when people are not educating the children, and everybody keeps saying the children are first, we got to make sure the children are protected. By who? See, I don't see anybody protecting the children. I don't see anybody educating the children on their constitutional rights. And if they're immigrant, on their privileges. See, that's the disturbing part, that people are not educating their children. And then they're claiming that they're educated. And, I mean, you got to realize your kids today are not educated. They are worse education because if you go back in history, back in the 1980s, they couldn't educate one kid to the other. That was no child should be left behind, so we got to brainwash the kid so that way he's stupid. And so the smart kid becomes stupid just like the intelligent kid. You got to have one kid smarter than the other. Well, that's the point that, it's so frustrating. How do we protect the children? We have a solution. It's called the Constitution. It's called common sense. It's called education. So, and that's the point. What are we going to do tomorrow when the outbreak? We got this outbreak of this corona disease. Okay, now they're saying that there's over 30,000 Americans infected in the United States. But they're not putting that in the media, in the mainstream media, but it's leaking out in the back door of it. But over 30,000 Americans. So that's the one thing. They're lying, and you people are letting this happen. You're not standing out. That's like Obama sitting there, running around flashing herself, and Michelle Obama, when she was on, Ellen DeGeneres show in this white blacks, when you can see that, she's got her ding-a-ling sitting there bouncing in the pants, and she's supposed to be a woman. I always find that hilarious. You should find it hilarious. Because this is what democracy is all about, destroying your country. And then everybody says, oh, we need God, we need God, we need God. How about we need education to tell the truth? Because everybody keeps going, we need God and government. These people from foreign countries want to bring a foreigner into your structure to dictate to you how to live, and that's God. Why is God sitting there being dictated to us in our schools and church? That's something what you do at home. That's your personal belief, because your neighbor might not believe in your God. And, I surely don't believe in God. I believe in His Constitution, and treaty gives you education. So that is the one thing you got to look at these points of what, why, and how is this going to protect the bloodline? So we got to be focused on realistically protecting your bloodline, because without your bloodline, there is no future to this country, and without proper education, there's no future in this country. So that's what Native people. I'm a national, and I love these national groups, and I've been on some of these things, and I try to explain it, and then they get upset with me. And it's like, isn't this the law the way it's supposed to be? But people don't want to talk about that. Oh, no, you just misunderstand what national means. Well, the national debt under the 1933 Bankruptcy Act, if you read national debt, the real structure is when the King of England went bankrupt to we the people. National debt, and that's it, national debt from the King of England. So it is frustrating what goes on. And then the other point is we got the frustration, too, that I want to touch on before we start opening the floor and, going through that. But, I want to get into the homeless issues that we got. There is no homeless problem. But we have people who were never brought up to respect their homes, to respect their neighbors, and are leaving their trash and their crap all over the streets, all over the floor. I mean, if you go through Portland, it's very disgusting when you drive down 33rd Avenue and you see all the trash and these vacant RVs that are all broken up, and they've been scavenging, trying to salvage what they can to sell for scrap, which I don't have a problem with. Neither should you. But if they're doing that, should be having some arrangement to get rid of the shells of these bodies of these vehicles. They should have something arranged so that way we're not still destroying our thing. A thing called, dirt, soil, property around us. Because we already destroyed Fukushima is leaking in the ocean. And we already know that in the Oregon coast. So we got that on our side against us. And then don't forget, we have, the Columbia River. We have Hanford leaking literally in the Columbia River. And the only one who actually wrote about that, you can type it in, Channel 5 News. In Seattle, Washington is the only one to touch it. The Senate and House of Oregon, they don't give a shit about you people. Your senators and congressmen don't give a shit about you. They're letting the radiation leak in and kill your kids. That's why you got all these deformities beside the stuff, whatever they're putting in the flu shots and stuff, and they are putting chemicals in these stuff. It's been proven because there's been numerous scientists that came out, and you find out that these scientists have now been executed. And so it is sad, all these people doing this, that are doing, coming out and doing this. So how do you protect your children? Own them. And it's like I've been talking to people, how do you file to own them? It's simple. You read the law. It says you have 45 days to claim your bloodline. Otherwise, it's an abandoned vessel, an abandoned ship. That's how your state attorney general could claim it and own it. Your district attorney could claim it. Remember, your district attorney cannot write charges. They cannot do that. And some of the structure because of what I'm going through. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor.
All participants are unmuted.
Yeah. Could you email me that, all that 13th Amendment to my email?
I sure will. I will definitely do that.
All right. Also, I was going to ask you, is that part of that conflict of interest, DA following charges?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you got the conflict of interest statement, how lawyers and doctors and attorneys that you need to ask them file and that includes your teachers. If they're trying to tell you your kids need to be vaccinated and stuff, you want them to file a conflict of interest statement.
Yeah, I've read that. I was still pondering it because I was it explains on how to fill it out, but it doesn't go into details. I mean, it tells you their details of what they think is a conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're saying, it goes much deeper than that, and they don't say
Right.
anything about that. And it's really hard to find information on what all is conflict of interest. But them filing charges on you is a conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the judge would be a conflict of interest because his interest is in how much money he gets or his ruling, or I guess also because he's taking care of his supposedly brothers and sisters because he's still licensed an attorney. So
Right.
that still all falls under that. You also said something earlier about that the United States has already been in 5 civil wars.
Yeah, remember we've been through the first Civil War that started in 1812, Paris Treaty. Then we've been in the Civil War of 1860. Don't forget the short one we had in 1899. And then we had the one before World War I and World War II, because World War I was considered a civil war because we were fighting the British government again on civics. And that's the way they got it really classified in the history books. And so, and I'll find that back up. But I posted that up. Was that last week or 2 weeks? And it should be in the YouTube channels, because what I've been posting up, because the YouTube channels have anywhere from 60 things mentioned all the way up to, what is it? Besides 60 things mentioned, quite a bit mentioned in it. Trying to think of what it is, but yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of that posted in the last couple of weeks. I posted that up on the YouTube channel. So I don't have that bluntly available right now in front of my face, but when I cross it, I'll send it to you again.
Okay, I appreciate it. I yield.
Okay. So, but that's the one thing we're looking at, And then the other point too, before I pass the floor back on, is everybody's bitching about the plastic stuff, and the water that you get from your tap is more than likely safer than the water you buy in the store. And why are you buying waters? What happened to canteens? I grew up, all of us had a canteen that, when we were given a quart canteen or half gallon or a gallon, and some of us were given 2-gallon canteens. We used to carry our water with us. What happened to that? So anybody else?
Yeah, what do you know about the
Go ahead.
What do you know? Okay, what do you know about the stuff coming up in July? We have to have our birth certificate and a passport. It's chief.
Well, see, that's the one thing. See, I don't do a passport because I'm not going to a foreign country.
Right.
I filed my paperwork. Have you seen my paperwork the way I filed it? It's on YouTube channel. And if you're a friend of my Facebook, send me a message. I'll send you what I filed, because I filed mine, and I ran it through the newspaper for 3 weeks, and I filed it with the House and Senate. Because, see, that's the Democratic Party coming out. If you don't have the passport, we can throw you in jail, is what they're claiming. And that is part of the new structure of the FEMA camps, what they're trying to do, try to set that up. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, brother. It's chief.
Oh,
I'm back
okay.
here.
Okay, hey. So you got the other stuff I sent you last week then. So, but yeah, that's the one thing, that file to own yourself immediately and make sure the police department has it, and it's been hanging up on the bulletin board for the police department, sheriff's department, the city and county structure, and make sure you file it with the House and Senate. And meet these public employees to make sure they know who you are and claim your sovereignty. Claim I'm native. I'm not a citizen. I'm not a corporation member. I don't bow my head to any religion. Because that's the one thing that people do, is when you go, you got to go to church, you bow your head. Why would I bow my head to another king when I'm supposed to be a king as equal? And the Bible says I'm a king too. So why am I bowing my head to another king and shaming myself, if that makes sense?
Oh, yeah, brother. It makes sense. I like to follow the Navajo side of my family. You know that.
Yeah, I know. Same with me. Mine's Cherokee. I don't have the Navajo that I'm aware of, but I know for a fact I have Cherokee structure. So,
yeah,
and that's the whole point.
I haven't gotten all the stuff because I got to find a Wi-Fi setup, but I got a new little prepaid phone situation because they already sold my other number. And, that's in collections, but we know how that works. I'm not going to answer that. It's a pain in the butt, for one. For two, but I just want to let you know that
it's a third party.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then a lot of people don't know it. They did uphold something in 2015 down here with Mason v. Virginia. And that's the one where they said what they had done originally was they pulled over a van, and it was for the sticker in the window. And when they were searching it, they found a backpack filled with 28 ounces. And the Supreme Court panel held up that you couldn't go any further until you had a search warrant. But you know how I'm fighting all that down here in Virginia anyway. And Lord help me if I can get out of here. I'm headed west. I'm really done with this state, dude. They're getting as bad. Richmond's looking like Baltimore and California.
Well, the whole thing is, because remember, even the ones in California, it's like Bearcats and all these people moved from Virginia and New York City out here to the West Coast and brought their crap out on us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like you. You can go down my street, man. It's filthy. There's trash everywhere. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. You know, whatever happened to that commercial with the Indian with the tear crying because there was litter everywhere?
Oh yeah, the one that came out in the mid-70s.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the chief. He died about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
He lived until I think it was 99, something like that. But yeah, no, it really disturbs me because then people don't get that, you know, what that whole thing was about, because that was the natives crying what the foreigners came onto our soil and did all this to our country.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no respect anymore, man. There really isn't. I just got done dealing with a bunch of meth heads up here breaking into my place. So, but they caught him. One of them ran, destroyed 2 sheriff's cars. So he ain't gonna see the light of day for a while. Cars on fire, just completely destroyed everything. They shut down a lab up here, and they're really cracking down on that stuff up here. But you know how I feel about all that. If it's natural and made by the Holy Spirit or the Spirit in the sky, you know, we should be able to use it. You know,
well, same with me. I don't give a shit about what you want to kill your body with. That's your right to kill your body. But when you start harming somebody else, you've crossed the line.
Yeah. When you know, that's like people don't understand. Back in George Washington's day, you had to have it in your garden for medicinal purposes, not industrial. Okay, and it literally you could get fined for not having it. You know, $50 a year, which you know that's quite a bit. The the events that have changed. But you know, we discussed that a lot, and I'll try to give you a call here in a little bit. But I'm gonna cut the floor back over.
I'm not at home. I'm still in the hospital. I'm going in tomorrow morning for heart surgery.
Oh, brother. Well.
Oh yeah, I'm going in for heart surgery in the morning. So I'm literally in ICU right now.
Okay, well, you know I'll be praying for you, brother.
You know, so. But it's like, you know, it's interesting. I've been watching these women out there, and the kid up in Portland here, you know, people are crying because the kids, you know, the state took the kid and, you know, gave the kid surgery and all this stuff, and mom wanted to do it, you know, natural with hemp. But, you know, you're trying to explain to people how to file their rights and how to file it, and then you got all these other people trying to contradicting it, and then they convince them to go pray to God. God has nothing to do with it. Either you're going to do it, and that means you're liable. If there's something has that child, the mother has to live with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's simple. I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, we can't. It's like I had a conversation with a couple people today. It's like women, you know, if they're raped, I believe in giving a woman a knife and let her go to town on the guy, because the guy doesn't have a right to rape her.
No. Well, you heard about that one about that 17-year-old, didn't you? Killed his mother. Tried to murder his dad, but his dad made it through. They caught him in some store trying to buy, you know, camping equipment and whatnot. So, you know, what are we teaching these children? You know, that's the other thing, man. It's just unbelievable. But, you know, brother, my prayers are with you. I got you. We got you support as much as we can.
And I'm going to post this up too on my Facebook site. This guy, you know, innocent man does 40 years in prison. There's been a lot of them been getting out at 20 years. But see, that's the whole point. You know, they weren't guaranteed a grand jury trial. They weren't allowed evidence because of the corrupt judges. That's why I tell people, you have to file a conflict of interest statement with any court, whatever it is.
Right.
And people don't get it. You have to file a conflict of interest statement. And, you know, I could email that to anybody who wants it. It's up on my Facebook walls. I'll put them in PDF files, so that way I'll put them on the Facebook walls, too, in a PDF file. And I'm not sure if we have them up on the website, new.org and trackers yet or not, but we're working on it. You know, because, I mean, our producer is doing a hell of a lot of work, and he's got a lot in his plate, too, so.
Yeah.
It is bringing it out, and don't forget, there's a petition going around for Nancy Pelosi for her to give up her seat. And, you know, I don't like signing whiners, but, you know, those who want to sign it, I encourage, because I figured the other one should file the indictments like I'm doing with the Supreme Court. You know,
well, there's a trail.
Go ahead.
There's a trail back to Schiff, too. They're all intermarried.
Oh yeah,
So,
well, Schiff is one of the world bankers. Did you know that?
yeah, he's one of the 13 big families.
Yes,
Yeah.
you got it. Hmm.
Yeah. You know me. You tell me to go do the research, baby. I go do the research.
Okay.
But brother, I love you, man. Take care of yourself, and I'm gonna let the floor back to somebody else. And I appreciate everything you've done, brother.
Appreciate it, and thank you for your time. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got one. I'll try and keep it short.
Floor is yours.
Well, you brought up the DA can't bring charges. Is that, I was going to ask you to elaborate a little more. Is that basically because they've got a conflict of interest? Is that the main reason for that?
Well, in charges in what situation?
Oh, say a traffic matter, say a driver's license matter.
Oh, that's simple. Bring up charges on them. And did you? Now I have and if you're on my Facebook, I can send it to you. If you send me a message, I'll send you the American Bar Association, even Public American Bar Association.
Oh, that'd be good.
So that's one of your evidence piece, and then and I'll send you the conflict of interest statement, because the district attorney, the cop, the clerk, the administration, they all have a conflict of interest because they're all getting paid from the same corporation to put you in jail, basically take away your 14th Amendment right and your 13th Amendment right and put you in jail.
All right.
See, they're going after to put you in freedom. They're taking away your freedom. And see, that's where people don't. Go ahead.
Oh, I got your conflict of interest information, but this bar association stuff sounds really good. Is that on the site?
Yeah, it should be on the. I don't know if it's on the site yet or not, but I can send it to you if you send me a message on Messenger. I'll make sure you get it on Messenger.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're going to be busy for a little while, and I hope that goes well.
Oh yeah,
well
I'll get that to you tonight because I won't be really that busy until tomorrow.
All
Tomorrow's when I go in for surgery.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. With the surgery.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. They always love it when they try to say, well, counselor, you need counseling and all that. It's like, I don't need counseling. I've been through it. I know. It's either the guy does a good job or it doesn't. It's just, we're just able to extend life longer today than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's just realistic. You know what I mean.
Some of the stuff they do well. I had cataract surgery. It went great.
Oh, okay. So yeah. It just depends on the man or woman.
Yep. Hopefully you got a good surgeon and he isn't drunk.
Well, it's like I was having fun with them earlier. I said, so long as the guy doesn't have more than 2 drinks when he comes to the table.
There you go.
It's like they're still and I'm like, realistically, because sometimes the guy might need to have a shot, to study his hand. Who knows? I mean, we've all been through certain circumstances ourselves in life. But then again, we have to be smart and responsible. We can't use it as an excuse. That's like when people get in a car wreck or something like that and cause damage and go, oh, well, I was drunk or I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict and that's why I did it. I don't buy it because if you're not responsible, I don't want to hear your wham-wham.
Right.
Because you just told everybody you're not responsible.
Oh, and I'm with you. There's I feel that myself sometimes. Sometimes I'm better with a shot, So anyway, I hope he's on the top of his game however he gets there.
Same with me. I won't find out until after as the saying goes, the fat lady sings, or in my case, the fat man. Because it sucks. I mean, since last year, I gained 45 pounds, and I'm still trying to figure out how I did that when I eat the same. So, that's frustrating.
We'll be holding a thought for you.
So, I plan on being back on next Saturday night, and hopefully, hopefully I'm still not here, but if I'm here, I'll be back on anyway, so one way or the other. So, that's just the way that's going to sing. So I appreciate all the kind thoughts. Anybody else who got anything they'd like to add this evening?
May I?
Go ahead.
This is Marshall Meekum in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question. I've been trying to research any kind of history book that was printed before 1921. Is there such an existent thing? Are you aware of it? Everything I've went every which way, there's nothing printed before that time that exists. Is that the true statement?
Which category are you talking about?
Just the regular history book, just general history about the president and whatever.
Well,
I've been reading one from the 1890s, Marshall Lynn.
You can't. Are you sure?
Well, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just happened to go.
I have one, and I've been reading, and it's actually kind of interesting. Because yes, you don't have the modern slant on in that particular one.
Can you send me that? Or Marshall, are you on my Facebook or email site?
I don't think I am, but I need to be.
Okay, as soon as you're able to get, my Facebook is Edward Johnston. I have a white teddy bear with a red rose.
Okay.
And then I don't like always giving my email out because I get tons and hundreds of emails, and sometimes they're crazy emails. But
my dad was named Ed Johnson, so I can remember you.
Just say that again?
My dad was named Ed Johnson, so I can remember you.
Oh, okay. Well, you can type that in on the internet, and you'll find my my email.
Okay, I'll find that.
But it's Johnston. It's Johnston.
Oh, S-T-O-N. Okay, that's ours is Johnson, or my dad was.
Right. So send me that, and then I'll make sure that you get what I have. And then the other gentleman, send me the name of that book, because I'm wondering if we could track that through a library or try to get some more of that, because I'm the same way as everybody else. I like to get some of these old books, and if we could get them downloaded and that type of stuff to put them up, or so we could pass them around, that's a wonderful thing that we could do for each other.
Yeah, well, I went to Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said I went to a lecture.
I'll do it. I'll send you the publisher and the copyright info on that.
All right, good. Now the other guy, go ahead, your floor.
I was just going to say I went to a lecture, a 30-hour lecture with David Strait, and he's the one that said that there's really no such thing as any history book before 1921, because he says that they've really done away with them all so that they could change the one really is. Like we know how Abraham Lincoln really was compared to what they think they say is.
Well, correct, and I agree with him, and I know what you're talking about, what Dave says. But see, the thing is that we could do that, or we go to the local library and ask them, see how far their stuff goes back from the local library. See, those things we could go to the local library and see how far their history books. Because I know in the state of Oregon, since Cape Brown has been a terrorist of Oregon, they rewrote the Oregon State Handbook. And people think it's a handbook, but I was shocked because they actually put the original Oregon Treaty on the Oregon website, because I've been bitching about that for some time. Because also, too, the original treaty in the state of Oregon was done with the British government. That's the 1846 treaty with the British government. And people try to say, well, you know, we're owned by the Queen and we're a democracy. No, we're still by the original treaty and the actual Constitution. And I'll send you, when you get my email, send me a deal, send me 3 times, and then I'll send you the structure on the 13th Amendment that I put together, and I'll send you some other stuff. And I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that, you know, we do have the structure, that we own ourselves, and with the administrative rules have changed some of the history. So I do have the original structure on that, and they don't want people to know this stuff, but, you know, even with dollars and taxes, because if you ever you could type in Title 12, the Bankruptcy Act, and go read that, the Title 12 structure, and you'll see banks can't even own property, and they can't lend money out to you. If they can't lend their own money, they can lend somebody else's money, but they can't lend their own money under their own corporation. And this is in Title 12. But see, everybody goes along with it because they think that this is the way it is when, we've been brainwashed on this. And a lot of this stuff has been shoved down our throats for the last 30, 40 years. So, Flora, go ahead. Anybody else got a comment?
No.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Now I know you're probably having the same issue as I am with the people that are always asking for property taxes. How much longer, or how's that going with you on addressing that issue?
Well, I'm still going on that, but see, I served them, and I would serve your state too. And ask them the first year, write your Senate the first year that taxes started become acceptable. Ask them when taxes started to become acceptable. Because see, in my county, in Lincoln County, I was fighting for the rural taxes in 1990. This is back in 1990. That if you were outside city limits, you didn't pay taxes, and they were shoving down and saying, well, everybody's been paying taxes all this time, but, they've been brainwashing. If we could keep reading the same material all the time, people start believing that as well instead of doing the research, and that's the saddest part. People don't do the research. So, and I did send you that stuff, didn't I, on taxes, what I have and what I'm doing?
You sent me some stuff on it. It covered different states, including the state I'm in, Texas.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah, and
see, and then ask them where's your contract with them on the property contract. Ask them about the property contract.
Yeah, because that's another thing I was wondering. Because see, as you know, my dad passed away. When they need a new contract, because now since it's being passed on to me.
No. Because when you got the title of the property, you were handed you weren't handed ownership of the property. You weren't handled freedom papers. You were handed a title. So you never spoke against that title. You never claimed the property as your bloodline. You never claimed it as yours.
Oh, okay.
So that's the one thing people got to realize. You have to claim this stuff as yours, and then go back and then say, prove the title. And that's the one thing that people got to start paying attention to this, because you have to prove this. Played up. I sent certain people on that how to go against the property tax, and I got a couple of videos. I'll put together a package and put it all together in an email and send it out, because the 13th Amendment covers property taxes in the 13th Amendment in what I sent out too. So I'll have that one to you here shortly.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And Donald Trump even brought up a thing on property taxes recently. So I'm still waiting to see how far he's going to go with that one. And people got to realize, Trump is doing, people are going after Trump because he's speaking up and telling the truth. And then I post on your wall that banks shall not own property. When you do writing your letter to your banker, take quotes out of that. Don't explain what you know or whatever. Ask him a question. I heard about this. Is this plausible? And use the word plausible. See, wording really does matter. Well, you know that. You're learning that. You know that now.
Yeah, I'm still trying to teach my two children that.
Well, we know how it goes, because they get opposition with their friends that are telling them, what are your dad saying this for?
I scared their principal because she turned around, what do you call it? They had my daughter supposedly absent 3 days on one day and a day on another, and I turned around and she said she had in the letter that absentee law, and I'm like, what? Absentee law? What law are you referring to? Because I turned around and I put in that statute codes and rules and regulations are not laws. And I referenced the 3 Supreme Court cases in it, and just to let her know that it's already been decided.
It's already been decided, yeah.
Yeah, and she called me back pretty quickly once my daughter handed her the letter, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I was reading your thing, and kind of got me worried when you referenced about law." And I'm like, "Yeah," and I explained to her. I said, "It's not law. I mean, it only applies to government employees, and my child and we're not government employees. So, what law are you referring to?"
Well, and also, too, in those type of conversations, hold on to your thought, not to be rude, but always return a letter back in that conversation that you had with her, so that way your document know.
Yeah, I need to do that. I need to do a follow-up.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, guy.
I forgot
You didn't lose
what
your
the heck
thought,
I was
did you?
saying now. I got old-timer disease.
But say, when you do that, you always want to respond. You always want to put things in paper and writing and keep a file on this stuff. See, I mean, that's the one thing that I had a lot of files on all this stuff I've done in my community or county in the area for 30 years, and that's why, literally my house has been robbed. I mean, they've taken over, stolen. I've had, numerous people stealing documents, including here's historical documents I got from the state of Oregon when they were throwing them in the trash because of the what is that called, the Paper Reduction Act. And so it's so important to keep the paperwork and keep the original papers instead of what they call copies or extended copies if you got the stuff. And that's the one thing too, you always want to swing by your library, because your library will throw away old books that don't matter anymore. And you can always ask your library to put on the list if they're throwing away old books, anything, from the 1900s and stuff that you want them. Most people don't think about it, but the old books a lot of the old books actually wrote real history in them.
Man, there was a whole big dumpster full when I went down to it's like Boulder or Greeley or somewhere looking for some ag stuff, and there was a dump. I wished I'd have had a semi or something big enough to haul them. I just snagged a few off the top. But yeah, you're talking about old history books and stuff. Go to like small town libraries and stuff. It's still there, but it's not going to be if we don't try and save it.
Well, that's true, because I had a whole bunch of books that I used to go to the Fish and Wildlife and the Science Center in Newport, and they would be throwing all these science books away for the last 80, 100 years, and I'd collect them all. And my own family members say, "We got to throw this out. It's old crap." And I'm like, "Fuck these dumbasses. You don't even know what the hell you're throwing away because you're so stupid anyways, because you never read real history." They want to live in today's fantasy. I mean, some of those real history books, they actually had real charts on your wildlife, your fish and structure. And then everybody keeps saying, "Oh, we need logging. Logging is the future." Well, if you log, you have no food resources for a minimum of 100 years. But on the West Coast here, they cut trees down at 80 years before a forest could even be developed. And they know it. And they keep talking about our old growth in our forests. We don't have any real old growth on the West Coast anymore. We really don't. They cut down so much of our old growth. And then not only that, we're nailed with radiation from Fukushima and Hanford leaking right into the Columbia River and leaking into our creeks and river systems. So, and all that's a real fact. And then I used to go ahead.
You get that seafood platter with the oily shrimp from the Gulf and the radioactive salmon from the Pacific.
Right. Well, actually, that seafood platter that you're getting is not the oily stuff from the Gulf, because you're getting it from Taiwan, and that's the poison shit that is swimming and eating their own shit. You go in the grocery store, you look at it when it says from Taiwan, You know, that's the food. All that stuff is eating and swimming in their own shit. Any of that shrimp, even a large shrimp, you know, even your little bay shrimp. You know, I mean, outside of Newport, they flushed the 2 sewer systems, the human shit, right into the river when it's raining, flooding. So they flush it right into the river, and the river runs right into the bay where they got the oysters, and so you're eating shit. Because your oysters are literally filtering whatever chemicals and the shit they're pumping in the bay. So it's horrifying what we're living today.
Hey, you don't need a prescription, just eat oysters, huh?
Yeah, basically.
That's pretty scary.
And it is scary. You know, and that's the one thing, like I said, I get people all the time says, well, if I don't file, the IRS is going to come after me. I said, did you ever read the law? Oh, by the way, if you do YouTube channel, you go on YouTube and type in, let me go to YouTube channel and type it up and pull it up. Because I thought I had it on my deal. My computer was running like molasses. Eventually, I got to figure out how to come up with a resource for a new computer. But, oh, come on, computer. I don't know if I'm going to have to crash it. I hope it saves where the windows that get open. But you want to look, and I can't remember, the exhibit something on YouTube, and it's a congressional records of exhibits saying you don't have to pay taxes. And it's your own congressman telling you it's voluntary, because when you pay state and federal income tax, it goes to the Queen of England. And, you know, and in the West Coast, they're going, we've got to raise gas taxes. Oh, the other one is the carbon tax. We've got to charge you to breathe air. I mean, believe me, I went through that. I had my heart attack, one of my heart attacks I had last year, and I came up, my carbon level from my body was so low, and they had to pump, basically almost had to pump carbon back into me for me to live. And people were like, what? And I said, you're a carbon unit. Think about it.
You can breathe in, you just can't exhale.
Right. But, I mean, that's what always amazes me with people. They don't get what they're living. You know, and the children are paying the biggest price of it all. So, and tonight I will put up the YouTube channels on the 4 Facebook pages we have. I'll put up the YouTube channels on the tax deal so people could have that too. Because I'll post that up on the YouTube channels tonight, so people get it. But let me go find it, and I'm gonna find an exhibit. Cause I thought I had some, but I got to restart my computer. I had to crash it. Because it's interesting. I don't know how many bugs I got in my computer. This computer.
Why are you doing that?
Go ahead.
Why do hippies like corduroys?
Corridors or go ahead.
Corduroys, like your pants.
Oh, okay.
Because they're groovy, man.
They're groovy. Oh, yeah, I forgot that one. Shit, everybody knew that in the 80s. God, that was, oh, sorry, man, that was good. I forgot that statement. Everybody knew that in the 80s. That's the one thing I haven't heard about that statement.
Haven't heard that word in a while.
Yeah, neither have I.
What else did they say back then? They said they said it's not are you paranoid? The question is, are you paranoid enough?
Mm-hmm. Well,
out of sight.
Say that again.
Said an out of sight.
There you go. Right on,
just
boss,
amazes me.
Right on.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let me go here to Facebook. Let me pull up this thing. I forgot what exhibit it was because I should have it on my YouTube deal.
Hey, Ed, how do you find your YouTube page?
Oh, my YouTube page is just go type in on YouTube, just type in Oregon Trackers. All one word. OregonTrackers.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Like I said, it's all one word. So I'll find this here in a minute and post this up on the YouTube channel. Oh, and the other thing for those, if you have not watched the movie, I recommend extremely strongly you watch a movie called Interstate 60. That explains your court system right there in a nutshell.
And
it really does explain your court system.
And watch the very long 3-part movie series, Atlas Shrugged. That also explains socialism.
Mm-hmm. Waiting for this to come up. And then the other one, too, is, what is that? Watch. And theft by deception. And that explains your tax system because it shows you that taxes were only developed for labor. Okay, what was that? Remember taxes. Voluntary taxes. You could type in voluntary taxes. That comes up because you could even watch several of these old senators telling you how taxes are voluntary. Oh, okay, here we go. IRS director. I got to find the one exhibit one. And IRS director admits taxes are voluntary. And people say, well, if you don't pay them, you're going to jail. I've never paid them. I had the IRS come after me in '93. And so when people put this hysteria out there, because you're paying taxes to a British corporation and you pay state and federal income tax, it goes to the British government. And that's the one thing when you figure out even your property taxes, your local taxes. See, and I just don't know how people just don't comprehend. It's like, no offense to people who believe in religion, that's your constitutional right. But, it's called Exhibit 5, your hash sign, 05, and then that .051, former IRS Commissioner Steve Miller says that the income tax is voluntary. And see, that's the other thing. Everybody says buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the same thing as your dollar bill. It's a de facto note. Where's the deal? Where's the money in Bitcoin? The gold and silver has value. Labor is the most valuable thing of it all. So I'll get some of the tax stuff up on the Facebook